Hi, I'm Rich Lieberman. Amidst another turmoil period at KCBS having to do with the latest being the death of one of their colleagues and impending layoffs coming through the pike at KCBS, part of the Odyssey radio stations across the country, is the fact that Jenny Seelig is the news director, vice president of news at KCBS. And to say that her managerial style and operation is full of strife would be an understatement. Now, those of you that have watched me, read me in the past, know that I am critical of Jenny Seelig. She has no time whatsoever spent in the field as a reporter covering news, covering whatever. She was an executive starting out. She had no news acumen whatsoever. Now, even saying all of that, can you develop respect? Can you get acumen? Could you have the command and the respect of your employees, your personnel? Yes, of course. That comes with being adept at working with people, at showing deference, at not playing favorites, at not becoming cumbersome, and running the operation, any operation for that matter, in the manner in which Jenny Seelig has run KCBS, and she's run it into the ground. Let's say this unequivocally, as I have said all along. This is a monopoly, KCBS. It's the only station in town that has news, allegedly, between 8,000 commercials and traffic and weather. They have very, very, very little news. That's not her fault in that instance, but it's supposedly the news station. Yet everybody with any semblance of credibility is getting the hell out. People who have means to retire or take buyout offers are leaving. The newsroom now, I'm told, and I have it on pretty good authority, is full of humongous strife. Now, you might say there's strife, there's tension everywhere. Well, there is, but not like this. Because Seelig has no respect, very little respect at KCBS. Even the ones that she favors and goes out of her way to promote or to think that she herself is a leader do not like her, do not respect her. Why? So many reasons. As I just indicated, she plays favorites. She doesn't like men. That's her prerogative. I don't think it's a very good virtue when you're running a news operation in a number 4 market like San Francisco. She has favorites and she has people that are not favorites. She has ongoing issues with personnel. She plays favorites like Megan Goldsby. Now, I'm not saying Megan Goldsby is bad. She's decent. But she has the eye and the ear of Jenny Seelig. Therefore, pretty much, Megan Goldsby can come and go as she wants. She can execute whatever gig she wants, including occasional anchoring and reporting. She's got it made. Sometimes that's not the greatest thing. Jenny Seelig plays favorites to a point where the ones where she doesn't have any kind of a relationship with or is hostile to outwardly and innerly complain, but they're afraid. They're afraid. Why are they afraid? Because they fear retaliation by Seelig and her various lieutenants, like Don Bastida, another executive who runs the traffic and the weather and various other non-on-air or non-high-yielding situations or components. If it not were for the fact that KCBS is a monopoly, therefore gets away with a lot of things that you couldn't get away with if you had competition, if you had just anything where you had another station, maybe even FM. KQED doesn't count because they're not technically defined as a news station. There would be some formidable competition, or at least there'd be formidable action in which another station could make room for improvement. It would force Seelig to pivot. As long as she doesn't have to pivot, she's got it made. The only caveat, and there's several, is the fact that several things. KCBS apparently now isn't making a lot of money. In fact, they may not making any money. They're losing people left and right, whether through natural attrition, people coming and going, retiring. Case in point, the latest. Now, I wasn't a big fan of Patty Rising, but she was competent. She knew how to anchor. She couldn't wait to get the hell out, I'm being told now. Stayed on, and she stayed on only a little bit time extra so she can get some benefits from the union with regards to her health insurance. Otherwise, she would have been long gone. We know whom they've lost the past 3 or 4 years. Stan Bunger, Steve Bitker, news people. They've laid off people. That may not be altogether Jenny Seelig's fault, but it's under her watch. She does not know how to lead. She leads by her own picking and choosing. That creates not only inner turmoil, but it also creates a great deal of strife and angst and stress amongst coworkers, amongst people, not necessarily those on the air, but even that's getting thinner. They're losing people left and right. They have new traffic people every other day, new reporters, the morning so-called anchor team, which is horribly misplaced. Not because they're lousy, it's just that they're not morning anchors. But they're losing listeners there. They have massive problems in the midday because inevitably any day now, Holly Kwan, who amongst the last known competent people is either going to be leaving or they're going to be told to leave because she's at a stage now where she's making too much money for Odyssey's stake. So they're going to offer her a buyout or early retirement if they haven't already, and she's just waiting to leave. Then they have the continuing issues in the afternoon with a new guy who got dumped in New York, came out here, but is not supposedly, doesn't have the news acumen and is deemed, like I said, too robotic. Guy by the name of Steve Scott. But based on what else they have, Scott is a regular Edward R. Murrow. Seelig does not have the respect of the staff. I mentioned even those that she plays favorites with and gives gift gigs to. They don't respect her. Why? Because of some of the things I just described. Comes latest. This comes on a newsroom vice president, a news executive. He may not have been vice president, so I'll retract that. A news executive who has a troubling death. Just a couple of days ago, Nick Palmer. It was Seelig who had to tell him sayonara, goodbye. Not only that, laid him off and laid 2 other reporters off, including Jeffrey Schaub and another industry inside newsroom news advisor. Don't know the name, but he's not on the air. You probably wouldn't know him. I'm told, once again, Seelig has a ruling ship sometimes of intimidation. That doesn't work well in the long term. It may work well in the short term, but it doesn't help you. And again, keep in mind, let's look at some vital statistics here. KCBS, as I've indicated so many times, a monopoly. And even with that, they had a horrible, horrible month. Not as bad as the prior month in March and April when they sagged. Get this, folks, KCBS Cume, only about 10 years ago, was well over 1.5 million Cume. That's the median amount of listeners that listen to a certain station. Now they have less than 230,000 Cume. Do the math. That ain't good. Also, the stress indicator at KCBS, it is not making the kind of money it used to make. Nobody is. Well, somebody is. KNX. There are rumors that perhaps a KNX news executive will eventually become the head cheese at KCBS, which it should. Anybody would be better than Jenny Seelig. She simply does not know how to run a news operation. She doesn't have the chops. She doesn't have the respect. I keep saying that word, respect. That may explain why the personnel at KCBS is so god awful, is so incompetent. It is so, well, look who's leaving. Look at the personnel. They lose reporters. And so most of this is not having to do with the money situation at Odyssey. People come and go. Of course they do. But in this instance, some of them can't wait to get out. Look at some of the people that they've let go, or for that matter, wanted to go, could not wait, like Patty Rising, like Jeff Bell a few years earlier. There now is conversation with regards to Brett Burkhardt. Now, I'm not a Brett Burkhardt fan. He was a KGO cast-off. He got hired at KCBS because they needed a body and they needed somebody that had experience. Now he, of all people, his contract is up this month. Nobody knows what his future is. I would bet his days are numbered because he makes too much money and they'll find a way to tell him goodbye. But he came here. He's not a big fan of Seelig, and apparently Seelig is not a big fan of him. He just came here under circumstances. They don't have any real decent reporters left. They are taking people that have very little experience, putting them behind a mic, people that have no business reporting here, let alone anywhere else. But in San Francisco, still the number 4 market indicator in radio. Listen to the crap that is KCBS, and they don't respect Seelig. There's the usual now conversation taking place outside the new studios there on Kearney Street. The only people that stick around, folks, at KCBS are those that have still an ego, want to be on the radio, maybe have spouses that work. She's turned off quite a bit of people. I'm not giving you an opinion now. I'm giving you fact. She does not know how to manage. It's quite indicative. And it's not going to get any better. It's only going to get worse. And with these monumental situations taking place, the lack of financial acumen by Odyssey, which owns KCBS and other stations, things are going to get worse. The fact this latest incident, apparently Seelig obviously had nothing to do with the death of Nick Palmer, but stress and turmoil and angst and stress personified, which permeates the entire newsroom. And look at the ratings. Look at the cume. It's not a very pleasant situation. And as long as Seelig is in charge, and look, in her mind, She thinks she's bulletproof. Why? She's a woman. She's been tested before. They're afraid, I guess, they being management and ownership, of letting her go because of her gender, because of the fact that she's been there. But make no mistake about it, folks. KCBS is right now in the midst of something pretty stinky and lousy. And again, it's not going to get any better anytime soon. I'm Rich Lieberman. This has been the Rich Lieberman Media Pulse.